This is a reading from the Notebooks by Maria Valtorta, 1945 to 1950. July the 16th, 1945. And now I should tell you something, since I would otherwise fall into a fixation. For 15 days now, perhaps more, the dear voice has been spurring my heart in these terms. Remember your separated brothers and sisters. Remember that you are a victim for their sake, too. Remember that they are sustained by your friend Gabriella, the Trappist. Footnote 60. Sister Mariella Gabriella Sagedu, a Trappist in Grotta Ferrata, 1914 to 1939, who offered herself for the unity of Christians, proclaimed blessed by Pope John Paul II on January 25, 1983. Remember that the obstacle of the war has ended. Remember that souls should be helped not only with prayer. Remember that I am the Christ of all, and that all Christians belong to Christ. Remember that your mission goes far beyond blood relations and affections. You are the spokesman of the voice, and the voice went to everyone. You cannot deny that voice. Remember that I am loved, as you yourself intuited, more reverently in the other confessions than by you Catholics. There is only one step to be taken in order to enter and form one single flock under one shepherd, and a hand is needed to reach out beyond the stream which divides to help them to come. Thirst for me is quite intense there. But what can I do? Lose the sleep remaining to me over the gimlet of admonition which is never silent in my thought? Lose tranquility because I don't know what to do and am opposed to acting and feel I am displeasing Jesus by not acting? Among our separated brothers and sisters, I know only those of Nashdom Abbey by name. And what can I do? And what shall I say? I don't know English, and why does Jesus want things from me which are superior to my capacities and tendencies? Help me, since do you realize, when he wants something, he wants it, and he does not calm down until he gets satisfaction. Jesus says, because of the lack of union among peoples, let there at least be union among Christians, for the anti-Christian times are imminent, and it is necessary for prophecy to be fulfilled. All right, but how? In the meantime, I'm giving everything I suffer, reserving a shred for other intentions. I feel it is not enough, and I cannot add other sufferings to those proper to illness. And so, footnote 61, we pass over 47 handwritten pages containing 4 episodes dated July 17th to 20th, 1945, and the beginning of a 5th, the paralytic at the Bethsaida pool, from the 2nd year of the public life. July 21st, 1945. It's 11 a.m., and my heart has a new sorrow. I confess that, though I had been getting a perception of this new sorrow for days, I cried today. My tears fell while I was eating, without making a fuss, for I don't like to make a fuss of no interest to others. My uncle, footnote 62, Aristide Fioravanti, her mother's brother, who died in Bergamo on July 14th, 1945. My uncle. He wrote to me through a friend with a last goodbye, and this relative, too, is dead. He had always been in my heart, so sick, so much in need of everything, and first of all, of affection, of someone to caress his big wounds, and remove that harshness which his excessively numerous and painful misfortunes had introduced into his heart. And I was so good at it. I suffered for him, too, in these months in which it was impossible to communicate with the people in the north, and his letter in June made me happy. It at once occurred to me to offer him a little gift, and I then felt it was the last one. He got it, and it will be the only flower of affection on his funeral cushion. The tears are falling from my eyes. Lord, and I shall say no more, you know. With this knot of mute pain in my heart, I plunge down to give relief to my body, which does not want to die, whereas I would so like to, and I think of Sister M. Gabriella. I feel she is wishing for a sugar plum, and she is not convinced that there is more gall than honey in Jesus' chalice. And as I sense 2 of her sisters will soon arrive on her behalf to beg for a word, I say to Jesus, is there nothing for her? Because she shouldn't ask me every now and then if there is nothing. A reply as blunt as a rifle shot. No. I am left annihilated under that blunt no, excluding every reply, and I turn towards the other side and cry over my uncle, while Marta slumbers, and at 4 p.m. the sisters appear. Is there nothing to say to the superior? To give should be the reading. I should have thanked her for Cancogni, but I am crushed by too many matters, and also say, no. I think of how bad she will feel, and what can I do about it? I'll write her a suitable little letter as soon as I can. But Jesus' no was so curt that I think that for quite some time Sister G will receive nothing, and I am sorry, for I feel pity for the souls unable to manage on their own, without moments of sweetness, and reserve them all for eternity. Is this a haughty thought? I examine myself and feel it is not. It is just the truth. Why, Father, is the veil enwrapping souls and things getting thinner and thinner for me? I would like it not to. This is the 4th time in a few months that I have said, I feel he or she is dead, and then it is true. My doctor, footnote 63, Lamberto Lapi, whose death is mentioned in the entry for November 29th in the notebooks, 1944. My doctor, Soldarelli, Annalena, my uncle, and so on. I think of them and feel they are alive, and then one day I say, it is useless to wait any longer or write to them, since they are dead, and in fact they are. You see, in the case of Sister Giovannina, I felt she was not away from Rome, was not dead, and was not paralyzed, stupefied, or anything else, and I knew the real name to be given to this silence. I felt the others, though I could and should have thought they were alive, were dead. This is not at all pleasant. Jesus, take me back for the gospel. Footnote 64. We pass over 22 handwritten pages, dated July 21st to 23rd, 1945, containing the episode begun on July 21st, the episode in Bethany Mary calls Martha, and reference to a vision, all found in the 2nd year of the public life. July 23rd, 1945. In the evening, the Martyrs Flora and Mary of Cordoba. Perhaps to console me for the vision I lost, footnote 65, in the preceding paragraph the writer explains that she has had to summarize a vision in a few lines, since because of the chaos I had to deal with in the house this morning, I could not write while I was seeing. Perhaps to console me for the vision I lost, and help me get over the anxiety I am left with when, on account of entirely human affairs, I am prevented from devoting myself to my work. I am now clearly presented with the strange vision of a cellar, certainly a jail in some castle, a Moslem castle, for I see an ugly-looking fellow dressed as a Turk or an Arab, but he looks to me more like a Turk from a former period, with a long brown kaftan from which a petticoat made of dark red shiny cloth like silk emerges, with long trousers which are clasped at the malleolus. He is wearing heelless slippers of red Morocco leather. He has a brown hat in the shape of a truncated cone, with a circle of emerald green cloth twisted around it like a turban. The apparent jail or cellar, its windows are at ground level, is structured as follows. From a low corridor into which a short step-ladder descends, the entrance is through an aperture in the form of a rounded arch into a low, dark room like a cellar. In the center of the room is a square rock, with a big iron ring in the middle. The floor is beaten earth. This is the place which I am not at all able to depict with a sketch. A very pretty young woman is brought in. Her hands are tied behind her back, and she is practically thrown down the 5 steps leading into the corridor, which precedes the gloomy room, where the personage described above is waiting for her, pacing restlessly. In his high belt, I forgot to mention this before, which keeps his robe in place, there is inserted a long curved scimitar with a bejeweled hilt, and a scabbard damasked in gold. I am asking you for the last time, do you want to leave the religion of the Jewish dogs and return to the holy faith of the Prophet? No. Be careful. You know that in the land of the Moors there is veneration of one alone, Mohammed, the true prophet of Allah, and you know the fate which awaits the apostates. I know. but remain faithful, but remain believers in your faith, and I'll remain a believer in mine. Believe in yours, which is false, and I'll believe in mine, which is true. I'll have you stripped of life amidst torments, but you will not strip me of heaven with its rejoicing. You will lose health, life, joy, everything. But I will find God and his mother, the Virgin Mary, and my mother, who begot me for God." The man stamps his foot with rage and orders that she be flogged with iron rods. They tear the clothes off the girl's body, and she appears naked down to her waist. They pull her clothing down over her hips without untying her hands, which are thus left covered by her clothes. They tie a rope around her neck as if it were a necklace, and secure her to the ring, after making her kneel alongside the square block, in such fashion that her chin is touching the hard rock. And then 2 sinewy jailers from the escort that has dragged her there start fiercely striking blows to her young shoulders, neck, and head. Each blow raises up a blood-filled blister on her tender white flesh. Her chin, as her head is being stricken, knocks harshly against the stone and gets wounded, and of course her teeth crack against each other, bringing pain. Since she is kneeling at a distance from the block, with her hands tied behind her back, and forced to remain bending over at nearly a right angle, she cannot find relief in any way, and in addition to the blows, that position itself is a torture. The judge is not yet satisfied, and as he stands overseeing the torture with his arms crossed, as if he were watching a peaceful spectacle, he orders that the blows to her head be intensified, to make her more like her accursed Christ. He sneers, and the executioners beat and beat with the thin, nearly flexible rods. I think they are made of steel, which fall in clusters upon the poor head after whistling in the air. Her hair gets entangled with the rods and is pulled out in clumps. What remains is reddened with blood, for her skin is broken and the skull bone is exposed, as blood runs down her neck and behind her ears, continuing over her naked chest and halting at her waist, where it is absorbed by her clothing. "Enough," the judge orders. They untie her, put her clothes back on, and lay her on the floor, as she is half conscious. The judge gives her a kick, and when the young woman opens her eyes, the meek, pained look of a tortured lamb, asks, "Will you apostatize?" No, it is no longer the previous triumphal no, but in its feeble tone, it is quite sure. "Your brother will take care of that, and he will be worse than I. Call him, and give her to him." And after giving her a last kick, the judge goes off, and the vision ends in another place, clearly a prison too, for there are enclosures with heavy gratings over the windows, and voices are heard cursing and chattering, alongside Christian songs coming from inside. Now the young woman is with another woman of her age, and they are led into a pompous room where I see the same judge as before, surrounded by other Moslems, servants, or judges of lesser rank. "I must still interrogate you then. This is the last time. So, what do you want?" "To die for Jesus Christ." "To die for Jesus Christ? But Flora, do you know what torture means?" "I know what Jesus means. But do you know that for your whole life I could keep you among the—" I say prostitutes, but he used an ugly term. The way you've been these last few days, what will you take into your heaven then? Slime and filth." The other girl speaks. "You're mistaken. That remains here, with you. I firmly believe that by the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, of Mary Most Holy, his mother, whose name I bear, and of all the saints in paradise, the most recent of whom is my brother, the deacon, martyred by you, once we rise to heaven, we will be able to make the seed blossom which was cast into so many poor hearts, enclosed in vile flesh, and thereby redeem our very unfortunate sisters, among whom you have placed us, hoping they would corrupt us, and our firmness and faith would be shattered. Whereas, know this, we have emerged even purer and more steadfast, and wishing more than ever to die so as to add our blood to Christ's and redeem our hapless companions. Call the executioner. Let them be beheaded. May the true God reward you for opening heaven to us and touch your heart. Come, Flora, let us go singing." And they go out with the escort, singing the Magnificat. Jesus says to me, "You have come to know the story of the martyrs and virgins Flora and Mary of Cordoba, in the time when Spain was in the hands of the Moors in the 9th century. Holy martyrs, almost unknown, but how blessed in heaven. Footnote 66. We pass over almost 42 handwritten pages, dated July 24th, 28th, 1945, leaving out the 26th, which contain 4 episodes belonging to the second year of the public life. July 28th, 1945. And I shall now obey you by referring to the hasty departure of the Spiritists, who in June wanted a room at my house, and when I refused, took up lodging for their activities in the house next door. He and his friend both said they were chirographers and fortune-tellers, and I thought, I am also bothered by these 2 occupations. I let them stay until July 18th, when, on account of the sufferings I experienced at night, just like others, I had undergone every time I was close to places or people engaged in spiritistic practices, I understood that they were holding seances in the house next door. I said, and I also told you, Father, now I'll take care of this, and we'll see who gets the worst of it. And in the evening I set about performing an exorcism with Leo XIII's formula, which I had gotten from the Redemptorists in Naples. I have always found it to be powerful against storms, bombs, characters of an infernal variety, and every spiritistic episode. So there I was, barely able to remain in a kneeling position, to do so with my little cross in my hand, with my whole soul escaping from my body to convey the formula beyond the 2 walls, separating me from the medium's lair. And then I fell down exhausted, as usual when I do this, as if all strength had left me, and I remained in a swoon. It was like that for 3 nights, the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th, but on the 20th I had to remain seated, because I was more dead than alive. Yesterday, the owner of these 2 gentlemen's houses said to me that one of the 2, and precisely the one who was the medium, whereas the other was his second, packed up and left because they earned only 1,000 or 1,500 a day. What are 1,000 or 1,500 lire? Well, I really think that amounts to something. And the owner added, for I observed that 500 or 750 lire were per capita a day are no small sum. He also said that he is not staying on because he is too ruffled, not by noise or by us at home, since we don't even say a word while the professor is at work, but by other things which he did not want to explain. And afterwards, he wanted to know who you are and what you do, a lot of things, and when we told him she's a sick woman who reads, writes, and does embroidery, he replied, "No, I know, she's a saint." Forgive me if I have to write this word in order to be precise. Those good people did not understand what connection I had with the work of the professor, with a exclamation point and question mark in brackets next to the word professor, or how we could know about me to the point that they asked, "But do you know him?" "No, by God's grace," I replied, but I understood all the connections. "Well, it's the repetition of 1930. Footnote 67. See the episode relating to Spiritism in the section on the summer of 1930 in the 4th part of the autobiography. The fact is that the medium took to his heels, and I trust the other will soon follow him, and the air will be cleansed of the smell of sulphur, which my spiritual lungs cannot bear. And now let us see what annoyance Satan will cause me to take revenge. I certainly won't get off lightly. In 1930, through the mouth of the medium, I had driven away, as you know. He said, "You are throwing me out, but you are making a mistake, because whoever drives me out meets up with pains and troubles." In fact, I was no longer well, but they had to go elsewhere. Footnote 68. We pass over almost 24 handwritten pages dated July 29th, 1945, containing 2 episodes from the second year of the public life. July 29th, 1945. Jesus says, "And this is for little Marta." Footnote 69. Marta di Ciotti. The episode dictated prior to this passage was written on the feast of Saint Martha and centers on Martha of Bethany. Jesus says, "And this is for little Martha, who must not complain about never receiving a word, and who must be sure about being greatly loved in an active way by her Lord, and who has taken care of protecting her since he placed her under the tent where he takes his rest. He had loved you before, for loving is his very breath. But when you thought you were alone, I loved you through a whole family, giving you peace alongside Maria. Do not complain if there are no words for you. You receive them all when living with Maria. Letters are written to those far away, not to those who dwell with us. And you are where I dwell. Be good. Infuse the spirituality of Maria, who chose the better part. Footnote 70. Luke chapter 10, verse 38 to 42. Into your activity as Marta, and since she chose it with pain and complete voluntary love, she has received the super best part from me. You are resting upon Maria's heart, and Maria upon mine. Do not be anxious about too many matters, then, including wondering whether I am thinking of you. Rest on the hearts of those who love you, and have faith. God does not abandon those who hope in him and practice charity. Receive my peace. And I tell myself, on the other hand, the following, remembering 2 years ago, as today, my relatives from Calabria were arriving. Footnote 71. See the notebooks 1944, note 312. I gave them assistance and affection as a relative, and for their sake took on the biggest battle. But I am not in the same condition as Lazarus is Martha. I am not sure about holding my victory in my hand, in spite of all the protests of faith, and so on, which are written to me. What I am sure about is that I have had a lot of suffering, and still do, and still have it for this motive, which had its inception 2 years ago. Jesus says, it's worth losing a friendship to save a soul. Footnote 72. In the second episode we indicated for July 29th, and that's fine. I really believe this is my case, and I also confess that my displeasures over it is very relative. I think that the fewer bonds I have, the freer I will be to fly to Jesus. I am speaking of the bonds of human affections, and I feel they are so weakened by the consumption of human baseness and wretchedness that there remains only one partially eaten away fiber which can be broken by the slightest thing. My love for my relatives thus becomes stripped of all that is flesh and blood, that is, what remains selfish enjoyment, and turns into golden, painful, spiritual love, which will never abandon these spirits out of love for Jesus. And this is the essence which 2 years of intimate contact have squeezed out of the fruit of this proximity. Footnote 73. We pass over the handwritten entries extending from July 30th to August 10th, 1945, which contain episodes found in the second year of the public life. August 10th, 1945. This has truly been obtained with tears, for I feel the aversion of this heart. I received these words for Sister Gabriella, footnote 74. See note 4. Daughter, daughter, daughter of mine, and didn't you allow yourself to be carried away by a desire for the great heights where the cross soars? And didn't I say to you the last time, go with my peace, and let it be a viaticum for you in your great needs? For I know what concerns each man, for I knew you needed a viaticum, for I know that a great reward is reserved for those who do God's will, for I know what the hour of Gethsemane is, because of all of this pain which is on earth, and for the sake of all the glory which is in heaven, for the generous, I gave you my peace as a viaticum. And since you have allowed yourself to be carried away by a desire for the great heights where the cross soars, learn to repeat the words of the cross, and especially for your case, the first and last 2 phrases joined together by the golden chain of a thirst to expiate for the world. Peace be with you, Maria Gabriella. Peace be with you. And once again, peace be with you. Footnote 75. We pass over the following 24 handwritten pages containing the episode for the disciples of Sycamore, dated August 11th, 1945, and pertaining to the second year of the public life. August the 12th, 1945, Saint Clare of Assisi. I see, and it surely will not seem something impossible to see, because it is known to many, the miracle of St. Clare's driving away those attacking the convent in Assisi. But it is a joy for me to see it, and I am not concerned about others. I shall describe what I see to you. Quite a poor little convent, low-lying, with a roof sharply sloping down in front, a small cloister, crying out the great Franciscan word from each stone, poverty, and dark, short, narrow little corridors onto which the minute cell doors open. The convent resounds like a hive of voices in prayer and moans, and this little convent truly resembles a hive, flabbergasted by an invasion. The din of the struggle outside also flows in with a fusion of violent and prayerful voices. I don't know if it is a lay sister who brings the news that the enemy hordes are trying to invade the convent, or some resident of Assisi who warns the poor Clares of the danger. I do know that the panic is reaching its peak as they all rush into the cell of the abbess, who is prostrate in prayer near the edge of her couch, and gets up, pale and consumed, but very beautiful and solemn, to receive her terrified daughters. She listens to them, and tells them to go down to the choir with due order and faith, in the silence of the rule, for nothing, she says, no matter how tremendous it may be, must make us forget the holy rule. And she follows them, and goes into the small, unadorned choir, beyond which is the little dark church, with a barred door containing only 2 small candles, one in the church and the other in the choir, which peacefully shine before the tabernacle, for the souls in the world who remember God too seldom, on the other hand, and for the souls belonging to Jesus, who see the symbol of themselves in that small, perpetual flame. They pray, jolting at every cry that is louder and closer, and when one, who is surely a lay sister, comes back in, yelling unabashedly, "Mother, they are at the door," the poor Clares double over, as if already stricken dead. Sister Clare does not. On the contrary, she stands up and proceeds right into the middle of the choir and says, "Do not be afraid. They are men, and they are outside. We are here, inside with Jesus. Remember his words. Not a hair will be taken from you. We are his doves. He will not allow the sparrowhawks to profane them." Outside, the wave of tumult is getting louder, giving the lie to her words, but she does not get upset. On seeing that the poor Clares are too terrified to overcome doubt and dread, she addresses God. "My sweet Jesus, forgive your poor Clare's daring to set her hands in the place where only a priest can set them. But here there is only you and us. One of us must thus say, 'Come,' to you. My hands are washed by tears. They may touch your throne." And she resolutely goes to the tabernacle, opens it, and takes out not the monstrance as it called, but a case resembling a pyx. It is not made of precious metal, but ivory, or mother of pearl, I think, at least on the outside, in so far as the scanty light enables me to see. She takes it out, and holds it as reverently as she would hold the child Jesus. She fearlessly walks down the few steps, and proceeds towards the convent door, singing psalms, and the sisters follow her, trembling and subdued. "Open the door, daughter." "But they are outside. Do you hear the cries and blows?" "Open the door, daughter." "But they will burst in here." "Open the door, for the sake of obedience." And Clare, previously gentle and persuasive, takes on an imperious tone, which will not tolerate delay. She is the former landowner accustomed to giving orders, and the great abbess calling for obedience. The poor Clare opens with a moan and shudder, slowing down the operation, and the others behind the abbess are also trembling. They cross themselves, closing their eyes ready for martyrdom, and lower their veils so as to die with their faces covered. The door is finally half open. The shouting of those attacking turns into a cry of victory, and, ceasing to use their weapons, they plunge towards the opening door on a run. Clare, her face as white as the case she is holding high, up as the only veil over her cloistered visage, takes 2, 3, 5 steps beyond the threshold. I do not know if she sees those in front of her, or her land, or her enemies. I don't think so. Her eyes do nothing but adore the Eucharist she is carrying. Tall, very thin, and consumed as she is, as white as a lily, slow in her steps, she looks like an angel or a ghost. To me, she looks like an angel. To the others, she must look like a ghost. Their boldness crumbles, comes to a halt, and on seeing her take another step forward, turns around in disorderly flight. It is then that Claire staggers, and bending over as if about to fall, hastens to go back in beyond the threshold. They have fled. Blessed be the Lord. Now, hold up your mother so that I can take him back to his altar. Sing, daughters, and hold me up. Your mother is very tired now. Indeed, her face is that of a dying person, as if she had used up all her strength, but her smile is also very sweet, and her waxen hands are very strong in clasping the case. They go back into the choir, and Claire, singing the Te Deum, places the case in the tabernacle. She then remains lying on her back on the 2 steps of the altar, as if dead, while the poor Clares continue the hymn of thanksgiving. This is what I see, and for me there is this alone, a few words from St. Clare in her heavenly robe, not as a poor Clare. With this, and she points to the most holy sacrament, everything is overcome. It will be the great strength of paradise and the earth as long as there are earthly needs, through the infinite merits of the most holy body annihilated for your sake. We, saints in heaven, obtain graces for you, and through it you obtain victory. May the Eucharistic Lamb be praised. May the Lord give you peace and blessing. Footnote 76. We pass over 23 handwritten pages containing 5 episodes from the second year of the public life.